So welcome back to the channel. And I've been on the Facebook marketplace a lot lately. And one thing that has been popping up is that people selling their old computers that don't have support for Windows 11. Now, with the whole Windows 10 end of life thing, that really flooded the market with a lot of computers that could technically be considered e-waste because it doesn't have a Windows operating system. But just because it doesn't have a Windows operating system doesn't mean that it is e-waste. There are other operating systems that you can use that actually run good, if not better, than Windows. Example, Linux. And Linux has come a long way, and it's really easy to use compared to it was years ago. There's a lot of UIs out there that make it very similar to a Windows experience. They also have their own market and program hubs where you can download a lot of applications that are similar to Office, audio, video, and all that type of stuff that you typically use with Windows. But it's hard to get people to jump on that bandwagon because so many people are so used to using Windows. And everywhere you go, most companies and businesses and schools and everything are using Windows. So even though it's come a long way, it's very easy and just as simple to use as Windows, there is still a little learning curve for certain things, and not all programs are compatible with Linux. But the one big thing I have found with Linux and just using it in my experiences and just experiments lately is that Linux runs really well on older hardware. It doesn't have that bloatware and all that other junk, constant updates and instabilities just as you run into Windows. Don't get me wrong, Windows is not terrible, but I find that Linux just seems to be a lot smoother and a better experience, and you don't have that junk just really holding your system back. I personally use Linux on my laptop and I love it. Not ready to take the plunge on my main system, but for my laptop and when I'm on the go, I love using Linux. And it's a good way to learn about it. So if you're interested in learning Linux, find an older system or a laptop, throw it in there. That's a great way to learn. But like going back to what I was saying, on older hardware, it really shines. I've taken older hardware, I've popped in Windows 11 and it does not perform as good as you would expect it to be, obviously because it's older hardware. But then you take that same set of hardware, you pop it in Linux, and it runs pretty good and it's pretty much spiffy. Get on the web, do your stuff, you're gonna have no issues. But it got me thinking, and I'm kind of curious about this, and that's what kind of inspired today's video, especially with this system. If Linux works really good with older hardware as far as day-to-day tasks, can Linux make older hardware run better for gaming? And that's what we're gonna dive into in today's video. So let's go ahead, let's take a look at this computer. And in this video, we're gonna be comparing gaming on older hardware with Linux and Windows 11. And let's see what the results say. So now this system is an i7-7700K, has 32 gigs of DDR4. I forget the memory speeds, I think it's 2666. And for the graphics card that I am gonna use for it, it is a 1660, I forget if it's Super, non-Super, or a TI. But it's a 1660. We'll see when I load up the computer. This one came with a 500 watt power supply, and it didn't have storage or a graphics card. So the storage I am going to be using is a 500 gig M.2 NVMe and this graphics card. And the case for it, I mean, Aura, never heard of this case, but RGB fans, and you know, that's kind of nice. But overall, not a bad system. Yes, it's an i7 7th gen. Doesn't have the Windows 11 support, but it's still a really good system. It can play a lot of games. You pop in an OS that allows you to get onto the Steam library and such, you can still game on this thing and have a pretty decent experience. Now the 1660 Super, non-Super, or TI, whatever version this is, we can do better. But for today's video, because we're trying to use older, cheaper hardware, I want to see if Linux makes a difference versus Windows 11. Now for the flavor of Linux, there's tons and tons and tons of different versions, and it's all about what you're trying to do and what's best for your needs. Me personally, I like a version of Linux that's familiar to Windows because it's easier for me to use and kind of learn and adapt to it. But I also want one that you can run Steam straight out of the box without having to do any crazy stuff to it, and it's simple to use. So I'm using Linux Mint, the Cinnamon version. Now there are different versions of Linux Mint, some with less stuff on it that's actually supposed to be a little spiffier, but I find that if you're going to be doing some gaming and a little more intense stuff, Linux Mint Cinnamon works really good. Now, yes, Linux Bazzite, and I did do a video on it. That is another option, but I ran Linux Bazzite for a while and I didn't enjoy my experience with it. It just kept on crashing and it was more of a headache to me than it's worth. Maybe it was the version I got. Maybe it was the hardware combination. I'm not sure, but I've been using Linux Cinnamon Mint now for at least well over 6 months. and I've never had it crash on me. I've never had issues with stability, and it works fantastic. So that's just my recommendation, and it actually came from a viewer. You know who you are. Thank you so much for giving me that recommendation. I like the Cinnamon. So now installing Linux Mint Cinnamon is really easy. Go to their website, download it, use the Balena Etcher, get a USB thumb drive, and it does everything and it's automatic. Pop it in, boot it, install it, and it's so simple. And what makes this easier is there's this program called over here called the Software Manager, and it gives you all the programs that you need to that are very similar to Windows. Let's put it that way. You got your Discord, OBS Studio, which that's awesome that you actually have those, so you're familiar with it. But this one also comes with what I like, its own Office programs. Well, not its own, but it comes with LibreOffice, so you don't have to worry about Microsoft Word and all that type of stuff. But anyways, moving on, there's a whole bunch of different categories for just different programs, graphics, games, the flat packs, system tools. I mean, if you go through it, you'll probably find what you're looking for. And if not, there's a bunch of resources where you can download programs that you need. But moving on, as soon as you get this thing installed, all you got to do is type in Steam. And I've already installed Steam, as you can see. Hit the Steam button, and it'll give you the option to install it, and then it'll launch it. That's it, done. It does everything for you, which is awesome. So the first game we're going to try is Cyberpunk. I went ahead and downloaded the games that we're going to be using, which is Cyberpunk, Horizon Forbidden West, and Shadow of the Tomb Raider. So let's go ahead and let's hit the play button. For as far as performance and all that type of stuff that we'll be able to measure, I am going to use the one that's built into Steam. There is one called Mango and then Gove Overlay. I spent probably about an hour trying to get these things set up, and I could not figure it out. Not sure if it's software, it's probably me, but there is that, which is equivalent to MSI Afterburner. But this one with Steam, and I'll zoom you guys in when we're doing the benchmark. You can see the FPSs, lows, high, CPU utilization, GPU utilization. So that's the basic information that I need. And when we switch to Windows 11, I'm still gonna use the same thing. So we're gonna go 1080p, low settings with fidelity. All right, and we're gonna run the benchmarks. So far, we're off to a good start. The game seems to be running smooth, and obviously as we get into more intense settings, our frames will drop, but averaging somewhere about 70 to 80 frames per second. We have seen lows of the 70, upwards of 128, CPU utilization 92%, GPU 97%. But I will say, the game looks good. So let's let this finish up and let's see what our averages are. All right, so average 87 frames per second, minimum 67. The max was about 110, but actually not too bad. We could probably take our presets, move it up to medium. That would actually give us a better image, better quality, and still stay within the 60 frames per second. But so far, not too bad. So let's go ahead and let's move on to the next game. So moving on to Shadow of the Tomb Raider, it pops up with this. Unsupported Linux distribution version and all this other stuff. We're gonna continue anyways. We're just gonna pretend we did not see that. Your current active CPU governor is not optimized for playing Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Well, if you can play Cyberpunk, I'm sure you can play this. We're just gonna pretend we didn't see that, ignore it. 1080p, let's go to play. Let's go to options, display and graphics. 1080p, no VSync graphics. We're gonna go with high. Yeah, we'll go with high, and let's run the benchmark. So we're sitting about the 80s, I want to say, and we'll see the final numbers at the end. CPU utilization, 71%, GPU, about 80%. Now I will say, and you can see it over here, we had dips to the 20s. There you go, 20, 35, and you can see that in the stutter, so it is a little stuttery. It could be the warning that they gave us should have been heated, but we ignored it. So 94 frames per second, not too bad, playable, 1080p, high settings, and yes, popping a better graphics card, we could get more frames per second, but so far, I mean, just using this compared to Windows, I'm not really seeing much of a difference, but the difference will speak for itself when we could do some comparison in performance. So let's go ahead and let's move on to our next one. So Horizon Forbidden West. Let's go ahead, hit settings. Let's go ahead and just double check 1080p, VSync off, presets low. I think that's good to for a start. Now, obviously in this game, you're gonna wanna have a beefier graphics card, but who knows? This might work good. Let's hit continue. So far, let's kind of see how the stutter feels. Woo, get me dizzy. Do some running. Now, I'll zoom in on the top in just a sec, but we are dipping to the mid 40s, which I can expect that for a 1660. Ooh, we got to dip to 25. That's rough. I'm just gonna kind of run through here and we can take a look. Let's go ahead and try to get this bore. We're at, come on, buddy. See if we could bring down these frames a little bit. 38. Pops back up. So obviously if we had a more intense scene, well, there's a lot going on in this game. So as you can see, just kind of running around, we just sit in about the 50s. And if we kind of try to get involved a little bit and do more stuff, we get some dips to the 40, 45s, up 40, 39. It drops obviously as there are more things on the scene. So I'm gonna say that's more the 1660. So let's go ahead, let's shut this thing down. Let's pop in our M.2 that has Windows 11 in, try the same games and see what the difference is. All right, Windows 11. So I do have all the updates, just like I did with Linux. Linux had all the updates. This has all the updates, so we're even on that. This has the latest and greatest NVIDIA drivers. All the games are installed on the M.2, same exact setting. So let's go ahead and let's start with Cyberpunk. So this thing's got me curious already. I don't remember exactly what the FPS for the Linux was, but they seem to be a bit higher. I think it was 87 was average, 67 was minimum, and 110 was the max. So I'm really curious to see what the final results are gonna be. But I mean, so far, I'm not seeing any stutters, looks good, and it's smooth, so let's see where we're at. So interesting results, 101 frames per second with Windows 11. With Linux, it was about 87. Minimum with Linux was 67, 81 with Windows 11. Max was 110 with Linux and 122 with Windows 11. So that is a significant difference, that is for sure. All right, so we're gonna talk more about my thoughts on it at the end. Let's go ahead and let's jump into the next game. So this is what I'm most curious about. With Linux, we had stutters, and so far, not seeing stutters. Also, we don't get that warning that this thing doesn't like Linux, but it's running a lot smoother. We were getting dips to like 25. Okay, so we are still getting the same stutters. That dropped to 12 frames per second, 28 frames per second. Okay, cool. Not saying that frame drops are cool, but we have consistency. So we can't say that Linux was creating that issue. It could be something with the system. So let's finish this up and let's see where our averages are. So our performance difference, pretty much negligible. So before 94 with Linux, 96, our minimum was 77, but this one is 74. So our minimums were a little higher with this one, but either way, negligible at best. So not bad, same experience, pretty cool. Let's move on to the next one. All right, time for some Horizon. So same settings. I actually had to go back and disable VSync. So let's see, running through here. Interesting. This game actually runs a lot better on Windows 11. Let's go ahead and try to take out this bore. I mean, we are still getting dips. It's not perfect. But yeah. So with Linux, just even going to take out that bore, our frames would drop to easily 25 frames per second, but we're more consistent around 50 frames per second on this. We'll go ahead and keep running just like we did before. I think in the other one, just running, we were about 50, but I'm just running through these scenes in 60, 67, 68. Let's go ahead and find a bore. Yeah, let's just go ahead and go into attack mode. Yeah, I'm fighting this guy right now, and a lot smoother. And with Linux, just trying to go after the boar, we would drop down to the 20. So that's pretty interesting. But all right, I got the information I need to make my opinion. So let's go ahead, let's wrap this up and give you my final thoughts. So does running Linux on older hardware give you way more frames per second, gives you the ultimate experience that's gonna kick Windows in the pants? Yes and no. No, it's not gonna give you more frames per second. It's probably gonna give you equal frames per second, if not negligible at best. The highest difference I've seen was 10%. Well, let's take a look at the games that we had. Cyberpunk, as you can see, Cyberpunk run better with Windows 11 compared to Linux. Shadow of the Tomb Raider, 2 frames per second difference. That's it. Horizon Zero Dawn, yes, it did run significantly better with Windows 11. It was a better experience on that, but still playable with Linux. Now, keep in mind, it could just be a driver issue, that the drivers for the Linux are just not as mature as the ones from Windows 11. There were a couple more drivers with Linux. I didn't have enough time to kind of go ahead and test all those different drivers, but as you can see, the whole point is that you're not going to get the highest and bestest frames per second. What you're doing with putting Linux on older hardware is extending the life and usefulness of it. You're able to take the games that you've been playing for years on this hardware, which perfectly fine, and still continue to play it and not break the bank with, number one, having to buy a brand new system when this one works perfectly good. I think it's awesome that Linux is an option, and the way it has evolved throughout the years, that it's pretty much to the point where it's easy to install, less than 10 minutes, click of a button, you install Steam, and probably within 30 to 45 minutes, you're gaming. Now, one thing I will say that I do enjoy about Linux on this older hardware is that the user experience is so much better. It boots faster, it loads things faster, it doesn't feel laggy. It's actually spiffier, especially when I've used it with new hardware, and even the loading on Steam and some of the loading times in the games was a lot better. Windows 11 has a lot of junk in it that you really don't need. And yes, there are versions that you can water it down and just get rid of it, but I mean, to be able to download Linux from a website, put it on a thumb drive, pop it in without having to go crazy modding and all that type of stuff, that's a win. And that's where I really like Linux, as it gives this older hardware usefulness, more time, and it saves people money. This is still a good gaming system all day long, whether you run it with Linux or a modified version of Windows. But here's the issue with modified version of Windows, and you might say that, just, you know, do the backdoor action. How long before Microsoft says, nope, we're not doing that no more? And then at that point, if you have an i7 7th gen, which works perfect for you for whatever your uses is, hello, welcome to Linux. So my thoughts, older hardware in Linux, yeah, it's a great option. I mean, I think it's a no-brainer. Can you run Windows 11? Yeah, but if you want a more enjoyable experience, pop in Linux, learn more about it. It's real easy and simple. There's a lot of different versions. Linux Mint Cinnamon is the one that I've been going to. That's been my daily driver for my laptop. Bazzite, I don't know, I just have a lot of issues with it. Maybe you guys can let me know in the comments your experiences with Bazzite or even your versions of Linux. But either way, as far as this system, I'm actually gonna make it a dedicated Linux system for my little human. Number one, I'm gonna raise her right, let her know that she has options, make her bilingual. She speaks Linux and Windows, why not? But yeah, I'm gonna be running Linux on it. I'm sure this will be a great computer for it. She'll enjoy it. And if you have older hardware and you wanna give it more life, this is the way to do it. So with all that being said, comment down below, let me know your thoughts, concerns, criticism. What version of Linux do you recommend? Are older systems like i7, 6, and 7th gen still worth it? And how long do you think before Microsoft finally says, no more backdoor activations, no more bypass? If you like this video, definitely hit the like button, subscribe if you're not, and as always, we'll see what we come up with next.